to the Dave Nemo Show.
We are back to the Dave Nemo Show. Anybody listening understands the term double nickel. By the way, double nickel is also Francisco Lopez's company. He's co-founder and CEO. They are a driver recruiting and compliance platform. He joins us, by the way. Francisco, it's really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Thank you for having me.
So talk a little bit about the actual meaning of double nickel, which, of course, Dave Nemo is listening right now, and he's going to be thrilled to hear this. But tell us about the name double nickel, why you chose it for your company, and talk us about, you're out of Brooklyn, New York, and how you founded your company. But give us a little background.
Yeah. So let's start with the name. I think when we were, thinking about how are we going to name, our company, and we started looking we wanted something that resonated with the industry and that stood for, we do recruiting and compliance, and safety is a big part of that, right? So as we were looking for different terms or different ideas around the name of the company, we landed on double nickel, because I think, going back on trucking lingo, it stands for 55, that it's the old speed limit.
Right.
And it's also sort of considered to be a good trade-off between speed and efficiency and safety. So we landed on that name because of that reason. Interesting, though, when we started going out to people and talking about the name, they were like, I don't know what it stands for. And we'll talk to people in trucking, and they will know what it would stand for. So it was always a little bit interesting how we try to make it from trucking, but I think it's an old trucking or an older...
Well, you've come to the right show, by the way. You've come to the right show because Dave Nemo has been doing this since 1969 and been doing trucking radio since 1972. And he actually, just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about just this exact thing. So he's going to be really thrilled. It's almost like, Donna, he's going to really press you to get these guys to come be sponsors because he loves the term double nickel. But let's talk a little bit about what you guys do, though, because there really is a safety connection, because bringing in new drivers means that you bring in new drivers often through the ability to promote your culture of safety, and also compliance ultimately is about safety. I mean, the whole reason we have regulations and rules, there's debate about whether they work, but the whole idea of that is the idea of creating cultures of safety. So talk to me a little bit about how you would onboard somebody. Like, I'm a company, I come to you, I say, I need your services, Francisco. Talk to me about how that works.
Yeah, so basically one of the things that we try to do different, as you know, and I think a topic that always comes up in these conferences and any conversation is retention continues to be a big problem. No, companies continue to have turnovers of 90+% a year. And I think one of the things that we found when we started doing research on this topic, and we worked very closely with 15 to 20 drivers when we were designing our platform, is the process is not designed to fit them necessarily, right? It's designed to fit the company or the recruiter or the compliance part of it, right? So what we did a lot at Double Nickel, and what we really anchored on as we were designing our product, is how can we make this more driver-centric? So a few examples, for example. How can we find drivers where they are? So instead of, banging them with phone calls, we allow them to, if they want to have an asynchronous chat with a recruiter, they can do that through text or email. Or how can we make, they all hate the process of filling out a DOT driver application. How can we make that process very simple and really streamline it? And I think those are the things that our current users are really valuing, making that the process better for the driver, makes the driver more willing to get through the process.
This is interesting. Actually, I put the brakes on Francisco there. I actually made him stop his double nickels on the dime, which is where that term comes from, by the way. But I wanted to kind of bring up a point here in the idea that so many companies are interested in making their back end and the suits in the offices comfortable with the information. That's great, except the problem is that those people don't drive the company. They don't move the company forward. Talk to me a little bit about how do you construct this? How do you put this together? I mean, how do you talk to drivers? Where is your inception point in regards to engaging with the drivers to make sure that they're the ones who are being given access, where the company members have to then catch up with the drivers and you guys? Talking about how you actually crafted this by using drivers.
Yeah, so basically one of the things that we always do is every time we put out one of our features or we start designing anything around our features in the platform, we not only talk to them about those features with our users, the company, the recruiters and the recruiting directors at companies, but we also sort of play them back with the drivers. So for example, we're launching the ability for the driver to learn more about the company and about the job in an asynchronous way, so they can go back and forth on text without the need to actually get on the phone with a recruiter. That sometimes it's very, like, it doesn't work. It's just like, the recruiter works from 8 to 4 and the driver is driving from 8 to 4. So oftentimes we found drivers will tell us, hey, like, I have the recruiters just banging on my phone all day. I cannot pick up. I'm driving.
Boy, that's fascinating. Now, let me tell you something really cool, Francisco, because Dave loves to say that many people who got involved in trucking in the late 60s, and boy, we had these 4 drivers of the year, and they all in one way or another said it. They got involved in this business to be left alone. They wanted to find a job that would at least allow them some space while doing their job to not have people in their ear, over their shoulder, banging on the door, banging on the desk, and all that kind of stuff. And it seems like that the acknowledgement is you guys seem to be focused on creating space for the driver to do his or her job and then deal with the other stuff in a less intrusive way, or maybe after the job is done.
Yeah, and also I think we now more and more are having newer generations coming into the industry, and a lot of them are, they might not need to talk to someone in person for the first piece of the sort of the recruiting process, right? They want to learn, they don't need to get on the phone with someone to learn about the home time or the pay. They want to be able to do that through, text message or through email in an asynchronous way when they have time. So I think enabling also that will make it more friendly, I think, for younger generations that do not necessarily want to jump on the phone with someone.
Do you feel like from a recruiting standpoint it also sends a great message that, in fact, if we're not constantly bothering you, we're setting up an expectation that this is what the job will be like as well? Do you follow me? I mean, the idea that because you're figuring out a way to be involved with these people to make it much more selective and much less intrusive, that the person in some ways goes, this must be what it's like to work for these folks as well.
Well, I think that every interaction that you have, whenever you're looking for a job, your employer experience starts not the day one on the job. It starts when you start interviewing, or the first contact you have with that company, or even when you start researching about that company. So I do think, to a certain extent, allowing for the driver to cater his way through the process and to choose, hey, I want to jump on the phone with a recruiter. This is the time that works best for me. Can you call me at this time? For example, that is one of the things that we enable. Or being able to say, hey, I just want to do my research on my own. I want to get questions answered that I cannot get answered on the page. And then obviously when the time comes, we'll do an interview with the operations manager, or we'll jump on a phone call. But I also want to be able to handle the speed of the process.
It's interesting because I don't know if you know this, there's an adage about American politics that says if you ever want to know how somebody's going to govern, watch how they handle their campaign. All you have to do is watch how they act during the campaign, how they handle their employees during the campaign, and you get a real sense of what they're going to be like as an executive. And so in a lot of ways, what you're talking about is you're getting a real sense of that this is the kind of thing that can actually end up affecting you. By employing you guys, people can actually affect their own companies culturally in a way that kind of maybe then spreads into the company itself.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've heard the most, and I think that's why we've anchored on this so much, is drivers today, and we also hear from the recruiters, like drivers today always have their voicemail full. What is that? Because every time they apply to a job, then they get 25 calls over the next 3 days trying to get them on the phone.
Is there anything worse than seeing the same phone number has left 7 messages over the course of a day and a half? I'm going to actually say something really nice. My colleague Haley is sitting right there. She gets this more than anything. She will leave one message and then wait at least a 36-hour window before she leaves the next message. Just checking in, thank you, because people can get incredibly intrusive. We're going to run out of time here, Francisco. 2 things really quickly. I want you to tell us why TCA and why joining TCA was important to you, number 1. And then number 2, I want you to tell us where people can go to find out more about you.
Perfect. To your first question, I think being new to the space and being new to the industry, I found TCA to be, and especially these conferences that are smaller, a place where I think we get to learn a lot about the industry. Also, we get to get away from our niche of recruiting and retention and be able to learn about other things that are affecting the industry. So I think it, as background information, is super helpful. And also, people have been tremendously open to us, especially in these conferences that are smaller. It's much more intimate. So that, I think that's what this is why we came, or what we came to look for at TCA, and this is what we found. So we're super happy with that decision of joining and coming to the conferences. And for anyone that wants to learn more about Double Nickel, they can go to www.getdoublenickel.com, as in the verb get. Hopefully they end up getting it also. But that's where they can find more about the company, or they can find me on LinkedIn, and that's also where we are.
Francisco Lopez, who actually is the guy behind putting Double Nickel together, joins us this morning. He's from Brooklyn, New York. And, of course, a couple of trucks roll through there every once in a while. Guys, we'll be right back after these messages. It's the Dave Nemo Show on Sirius XM 146 Road Dog Trucking. Francisco, lovely to make your acquaintance.
Thank you very much for having me.
You got it. Well, guys, we'll be back on the other side of these messages. Phone Master Dre is on the board.